7, 6.
Hello everybody and welcome back to What's in the Stocking. This week's hot topic we'll be discussing today is about eco-green Christmas. Could we individually do more to save on Christmas waste, or should we make an exception as it's only one day a year? So welcome, we have a few guests today, so I want to know what your thoughts are about this, very important topic.
One day in a year. It's literally one day in a year. Like, we should have the opportunity to just, enjoy it as much as we want. Particularly as we already recycle loads anyway.
It's just a fun day to do fun things. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, it shouldn't be a big deal.
It's not a big deal. It's just one day.
Okay, 33 million trees are cut down every year just for cards alone. Explain how that's not a big deal.
Well, we can still celebrate Christmas without Christmas cards. It's just a traditional thing that people do, We still like to follow a tradition as a country. We do so perhaps more than other countries.
And we can't use reusable paper for Christmas cards?
I mean, these days a lot of people don't actually use Christmas cards. It's a lot less than it used to be.
That is true.
Because text exists. There's Christmas cards you can send online that are e-Christmas cards.
Also, accessibility to be able to find, recyclable Christmas cards. Where can you find them? I haven't found any so far, really. It's very rare that you come across them, particularly in big stores, which might be the only things accessible to certain people in the country, particularly in far out places where they're not in cities and such like.
Still, it's not the point. Basically, we're just even though there's e-cars and stuff, there's still people cutting trees to either for Christmas trees or just for cards.
Yeah, but
just
then
for
that
one
happens.
day.
Yeah, but that still
one
happens
day.
all year round anyway. We're still cutting down trees to
But
make paper and
it's
cardboard
way.
and
I'm
whatever
way
else.
sure that the cutting of trees is way bigger. The production thing in general on Christmas that on other days of the year.
Well, of course, but it's not. The paper itself is recyclable. It's about the other stuff that's in
and
it.
the trees.
Yeah.
Why? Literally, why?
Yeah, we're still planting trees every year. This is
It's
something
not
that we
enough.
do because
It's
we still
clearly
talk
not
about
enough.
it.
Clearly not enough.
But then
There's
we still.
currently a project to plant 20 million trees, so looks like we're on top of that right now.
Mm-hmm. And should we talk about the fact that actually we still recycle a hell of a lot anyway? We recycle 50% of our waste, whereas other countries can only get up to about 30% really. So if we're talking about it on a wide scale, looking after the environment all over the world, we shouldn't just be looking at ourselves. We do try every year, where every single household is doing their bit. We need to look at other countries as well. So it's not just about us really, and it's not just specifically Christmas, particularly as we have so many holidays throughout the year.
It doesn't matter about all the other holidays. We're focusing on Christmas here.
Right, so
Christmas alone
right,
is
so you're going to
probably the
discount.
biggest
You're going
holiday
to
of the year.
discount Easter and how much is used around then. Not to mention food waste as well. We've got poverty all over the world where people are not eating. Are we going to discuss the fact that food gets wasted in America at Thanksgiving every single year?
And are we going to talk about how around Christmas a lot more charity work goes on than around the rest of the year?
True.
To
That's
places
great.
like third world countries?
It's all great, but we still can't just keep looking at other countries for ourselves. We need to focus on ourselves, and then we can focus on other countries.
Except we already are. 50% is a hell of a lot more to the
50% is
30%
not
that other
enough.
countries. Well, then we need to find other ways to do it, and it can't just be down to every single household. It's got to be down to the big companies as well, the ones who are going to turn around and say, all right, let's make our production lines more expensive for the sake of having the recyclable material. People will pay more.
How does it have to be expensive? You can use everyday things, like on Christmas presents. You can just use newspaper. What's so
Right,
wrong with
because
using newspaper?
that's going to work for every single household, isn't it? Where you've got kids who really believe in the magic of Christmas and want to see, nice wrapping paper. They want to see something that's quite nice. They want to see. They want it to look pretty.
No.
And particularly as we spend so much on energy for Christmas lights and stuff as well. Are we going to ignore that too? But we don't stop doing it. We still do it, and then we don't actually have any proper sustainable ways of producing this energy because we still use fossil fuels and stuff when actually we could be
There is
using
one fossil fuel plant in the UK. The rest of it is either wind power or solar power or hydropower.
Right.
We're
so
good. We're mostly good on energy. We need to get. We are almost there on energy provided. It's
Right.
the other thing. It's the recycling. It's
So
the
we're already
food
well
waste.
on our way to becoming pretty, eco-friendly and stuff, aren't we?
What about the other stuff?
Going back to newspapers, most households in our current day don't actually have newspapers lying around
That's
because
true.
not many people buy them anymore, especially the younger generations such as teenagers and young adults.
Newspapers are 25p. 25p for wrapping paper
I
slash
haven't seen
newspaper.
25p newspapers. I don't know what you're looking at.
Go to any co-op. You can pick up a Herald for 25p or 50p.
I've never seen that, to be honest.
Right, well,
It's not
that's
exactly
interesting.
advertised either, and it's not exactly promoted, particularly when you have things like the Daily Mail and the Sun, which are promoted so much more than the rest.
Also,
The
if
Sun
you
is
think about
50p.
it, your point about trees is now slightly more invalid because what are
Because we're
newspapers
still
made out
producing
of?
newspapers all
No,
the
but
time
still,
as well.
it's being used for two things.
Most
Like it's,
newspapers use that recyclable paper now.
Right, but so because we don't reuse anything. I mean,
And-
we do.
Wrapping paper is widely recyclable as well.
All right, that's interesting. But I'm going to cut you right here and move on to our next question, which I think is a pretty good follow-up. Do you guys feel that being just a bit too eco-conscious is actually ruining the tradition of Christmas?
Not necessarily, but what I don't like is the fact that actually we can still enjoy Christmas while still doing what we're already doing on a daily basis anyway. You know, maybe we do spend a bit more around Christmas, but actually that's just standard for every single household anyway. It's up to the individual household as to whether they spend more or less and exactly how they spend it.
But it's not just leaving up to the individual household though. We need to show them. The government or big companies need to be role models for individual households because that's who they're influenced by. If big companies are using non-recyclable ways of producing, then individual households are just going to forget about recycling.
Right, but it's been promoted widely anyway. We're all talking about how we should be doing more to do recycling anyway. Like, it's discussed constantly about how we need to recycle, we need to reuse. And so if the households are doing it, why aren't the big companies also doing it? They probably have more money than a standard household. So when you're turning around and saying that we need to do more, well, we are already doing everything that we can, to be honest. We're already trying to do recycle as much as we can. We are trying to compost as much as we can rather than wasting everything. We're trying to build trees, we're trying to do gardens, we've got all sorts going on. And then the companies aren't doing anything, even though actually it's something that's so widely discussed anyway. Half the issue is that these companies won't budge on it because of their production lines. And they know full well that people are still going to buy from them because consumerism is what we run on. We can't avoid it. There's no way to get around it.
Okay, you say we'll talk about this all the time, yeah? Where's those discussions around Christmas or other holidays even? Do you hear about it? Do you think about it?
Yeah, I think about it.
You think about it?
Yeah, I think it's become a thing that we think about quite a lot, actually.
You see
I
the
think-
discussions all over the news.
Yeah, not to
especially
mention
leading up Christmas.
social media. Social media is constantly talking about it. I recently saw an advert, even though it's like we're getting quite close to Christmas now. But I saw an advert a little while ago where they were talking about this particular shop which had done eco-friendly, recyclable Christmas crackers because otherwise they're not. But this one shop has done them, and yet none of the others have followed suit yet, even though they totally could. I mean, like, imagine how much waste that they produce in their offices all the time. They can literally use that waste from the offices and from the factories and whatever else to create these more products and then still build a profit.
It's not just about building a profit though, is it?
Except companies, that's their main priority, is building
It
a profit.
shouldn't be.
Yeah,
we
but
can't
then-
just think about the money all the time. It's not
Except
the
we
point.
still have an economy to maintain.
We can maintain the economy, but we need to do
Well,
it.
we
in a way
can't
that
if we can't if actually these companies are losing profit and shut down as a result. Consumerism then goes down. We lose everything that we need to run a household.
you cannot like
It all
just
links
because
together.
you think about recycle, you can break even and still run a company. It would be perfectly fine. You can make a little bit of profit. Make a little bit of profit, put it back into the company to find more ways
Except
to recycle.
our economy isn't really working quite like that anymore because people still need pay. People need more pay now than ever. I mean, like, we've got Brexit. People need this. We need more pay, and therefore breaking even isn't necessarily an option.
You can still
Particularly for the big companies which have shops all over the place, people who need extra money for whatever reason. Not to mention that the tax actually brings in more money to the people who actually necessarily can't work.
It's really unfortunate, but it is unfortunately the way the world has to work these
It
days.
doesn't have to work like that. We can
Okay, I
still
think
have-
we're getting a little bit off topic and going into economics, so we could bring you back to Christmas. In Europe, I'm going to specifically ask Christian, because you've been quite quiet lately.
Yeah.
Do you really think that overbuying or overspending on gifts is a bit necessary? Do you feel like you can still give a meaningful gift without having to spend too much?
I mean, personally, I'm like the kind of person that I find like there's no need to buy something as long as like the present you're giving has a meaning. Like I rather, for me personally, make a DIY present for that person because I put time on it and I thought that the person will like that thing I gave in to them, instead of just going to the shop and buying something like totally random and like what like more people could have.
That's totally valid, but then also there are people who genuinely want things that only come from shops that can't be made at home by some family member because maybe they don't have the skills to do so. You know, there may be something that's also meaningful that comes from a shop too. So it's not unreasonable for people to go out and shop for things like this, particularly as we don't have production lines in our own homes.
It doesn't have to be a production line. It's like if you are giving a present to someone, it's just to that someone. It's not to like a whole like family.
Except you're talking about meaning of presents, right? So that we're still maintaining the tradition of giving a meaningful present and making people happy.
Meaningful as in I've put my time to make this present for you. You know what I mean? Like I took like my time. I spent some time on that thing.
Right, so
rather than
someone
just
may
going
have
to a
coveted
shop.
something for an entire year and then everybody's just gone, no, I'm just going to make you something just because of the fact that actually I'm not going to spend the money.
It's not to spend the money. You can still spend money while doing the thing, but it's just like the whole like emotional thing attached to that present is way more powerful than just going to a shop and getting just a random thing.
Except that's not necessarily true.
Well, that's for you
Sometimes-
maybe.
Yeah.
That's for you.
Yeah, so it's dependent on households, and a lot of households think they're spending the money. Not to mention the fact if you're talking about DIY anyway, you're probably still going out buying something so you can do it DIY.
But still, it's like I'm implying that the emotional aspect of a DIY, it's just not like plastic in it. Like going for, I don't know, get your kids something like toys or like pure plastic that will be probably like thrown away in 1 year or less.
Right, as opposed to a toy that you might actually physically spend the time making for your kid for them to just break it as soon as they get it. It's
Still,
literally
like-
no different.
If you make it yourself, you can fix it because you know
Yeah.
how to make it.
Yeah, like literally.
Whereas
Right,
if
so-
you buy
right,
something from a shop and
But
they
that's,
don't want it, you're
that
just
doesn't
throwing it out.
necessarily work for most households.
Some
Most
people
households.
don't have the skills to make things.
All the
so
time,
they
for
don't have
that
the time
matter.
or the skills.
Single parents, how are they meant to spend their time making something for a kid all the time?
All right, speaking of time, I'm sorry to say this, guys, but we are actually out of time. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for your thoughts as well, guests, about how you feel about this topic of eco Christmas, even though we did get a little bit out of hand. So what about you, viewers at home? Are you pro-traditional? Are you happy to go eco? Tweet us at What's in the Stocking and join us on the online debate, where we will broadcast some of your views on next week's show. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming.